Welcome back to the deep dive. This is where we take the densest source material out there and really break it down for you, the learner.
We go deep so you don't have to.
And today, we are opening up the sources on what is, I think, probably the most foundational law in the entire study of power. Law 1. Never outshine the master.
It sounds so simple, doesn't it? Just
Yeah.
a straightforward instruction.
Right, but it's not. It's a whole psychological framework. It's a survival guide, really.
It absolutely is. It dictates not just, how you might succeed, but if you'll even survive long enough to get the chance.
And it's a complete inversion of how we think in the modern world,
Yeah.
especially in the West. We're taught from day one to stand out, be the best,
And
innovate.
stay a star.
Exactly. But the sources we're looking at, and they span centuries of history, they insist that this very ambition, if you show it openly, it's a one-way ticket to failure.
To self-destruction. And that's why this deep dive is so crucial. It's for anyone who's ever been in that position, that really uncomfortable spot where you know you're more capable than your boss.
Oh, that is a dangerous place to be.
A minefield. And our mission today is to unpack that. We're going to get into the psychology of it, why you have to conceal your talents, the timing of when you can finally show your ambition, and maybe most importantly, when you have to break this law, the reversal.
And the stakes here are not just, missing out on a promotion. The authorities we're drawing from, people like the Spanish Jesuit Baltasar Gracian. He was writing back in the 17th century. They talk about this in terms of life and death.
Gracian was completely blunt about it. He said, avoid outshining the master. All superiority is odious, but the superiority of a subject over his prince is not only stupid, it is fatal.
Fatal. That's
Yeah.
the word. It's not just bad career advice.
Yeah.
It's existentially dangerous.
It is, and the sources give us this really powerful metaphor to hold on to, the stars in the sky.
Right. Tell us about that.
Well, think about it. In any system, any court, any company, there can only really be one sun, one source of light and warmth. That's the master. Your role, no matter how brilliant you are, is to be a lesser star. Your job is to, and this is the key, fade into the sky. You aren't meant to compete with the sun. You're supposed to find ways to make the sun shine even brighter.
So you're like a reflector, not a source of light yourself.
Exactly. The moment you start generating your own light, the sun sees you as a rival, and it will burn you out of the sky.
So let's start right there with that core danger. Why is the reaction so violent? I mean, logically, if I have a subordinate who's brilliant and making the team successful, shouldn't I be thrilled? Where does the logic just completely break down?
It breaks down where the human ego takes over, which is almost immediately. A master's power isn't just based on their title or their actual ability. It relies so heavily on an aura.
An aura.
Yeah, a perception. The perception that they are unique, that they're indispensable, that they're fundamentally superior. Any achievement from a subordinate that makes the master feel insecure, even for a second.
Even if it helps the company.
It doesn't matter. It's immediately seen as a challenge to that aura, an attack on the very foundation of their power.
So the master isn't reacting to the work. They're reacting to how the work makes them feel about themselves. It's a primal emotional thing.
It's completely primal. The second a master feels that their special status is challenged, their instinct is to eliminate the threat. Swiftly and, as history shows, often violently. The sources are full of examples of powerful people who might be generous, wise, competent, but the moment their ego gets bruised by someone below them, all those virtues just disappear.
Their success becomes my failure.
Precisely. It's a zero-sum game in their mind. And this leads to a really brutal observation in the source material. It says, stupidity is agreeable to the body.
That's a harsh way to put it.
It is, but think about it. If you're a powerful person and you're constantly surrounded by people who are smarter than you, you live in a constant state of threat. It's exhausting.
Whereas mediocrity.
Mediocrity is soothing. It's comfortable. It reinforces your sense of natural dominance, which means, and this is the hard lesson for you, the learner, if you want to be liked by the master, you have to appear, at least on the surface, to be intellectually inferior.
So that's the tightrope. You're hired for your skills, but you have to spend more energy hiding those skills than you did learning them.
You're in a constant state of performance. If you're naturally quick-witted, you have to learn to play the fool a bit. If you're a brilliant strategist, you have to frame your ideas as if you're just humbly building on the master's genius.
The master has to always feel like they're the smartest person in the room, even when they're not.
Especially when they're not. That's when they're most insecure and most dangerous.
The boundaries here feel so rigid, and the smallest misstep, even an accidental one, can be disastrous. The anecdote from the Han Dynasty about the crown keeper is just... it's
Yeah.
horrifying.
It's one of the most chilling lessons because the mistake was so trivial. The king, Han, wakes up one morning and something is slightly off in his routine. Maybe his robes aren't folded perfectly or his tea is a minute late, a really minor thing.
Okay, so a low-level attendant messes up.
Right, and the king is furious. But look at how he directs his anger. He punishes the attendant, sure, but then he turns around and has the official crown keeper, the man in charge of his entire household, immediately beheaded.
Beheaded? But the crown keeper wasn't even there. He didn't make the mistake.
No, his crime was neglect of duty, but what was his real crime?
He allowed the king's world to be imperfect for a moment.
Exactly. He allowed a crack to appear in the seamless facade of the king's power. The king's life was meant to be flawless, reinforcing his godlike status. This tiny mistake made the king look like he was served by incompetence, which in turn reflected badly on him.
The lesson from that, then, is unbelievably strict. It's basically, do not overstep your bounds. Do your job, do it well, and never ever do more.
Never do more in a way that draws attention to yourself. Because the master is always watching, always testing. If you suddenly start volunteering for extra projects, or you're always trying to anticipate their needs in a very visible way.
You think you're being helpful, showing initiative.
But the master sees it differently. They might think, why are they trying so hard? Are they trying to cover something up? Or worse, are they trying to make me look slow? It draws negative attention.
It's like any extra energy you have should be hidden.
Or channeled. Channeled into two things. Making the master's cause succeed behind the scenes and building your own power base silently. The master must never see you as trying to upstage them with your enthusiasm.
Just perfect, quiet competence within your assigned role. That's the goal.
That is the highest virtue. Anything outside that box is you trying to redraw the map of power. And only the master gets to do that.
Okay, so if direct, showy ambition is a death sentence, the only real path forward is indirect power. You have to become the shadow behind the throne.
The essential shadow, yes. You have to learn how to be powerful without being visible. And that means directing all the credit, all the attention away from yourself and back onto the master.
That requires an incredible amount of self-control.
It's an art form. Because here's the paradox. You have to make yourself completely indispensable, but you also have to disguise the master's dependence on you.
What do you mean?
If the master has to consciously admit to themselves, wow, I would be lost without this person's unique talent, that thought itself creates resentment. It makes them feel weak. They start looking for a way to get rid of you just to prove they can.
So you have to create a dependency that makes them feel powerful, not vulnerable.
Exactly. And the sources give us just a phenomenal case study on this. It's Michelangelo and his relationship with Pope Julius II.
A famously difficult relationship.
Michelangelo was a nightmare to manage. He was disruptive, arrogant, demanding. Yet Pope Julius protected him, valued him, and kept him close. He succeeded where so many more agreeable artists failed. The question is why?
Well, the foundation has to be his skill, right?
Yeah.
He was simply irreplaceable. There was no one else who could sculpt and paint like him.
That's step one, absolutely. He had a unique, undeniable talent. But the real genius was in how he framed his role. He didn't just show off his talent. He made the Pope's dependence on him a source of immense pride for the Pope himself.
How did he manage that? How do you reframe that?
Think about it. The Pope wasn't just hiring a painter. He was the patron of a once-in-a-generation genius. When Michelangelo carves the David from a block of marble everyone else thought was ruined.
It makes the Pope look like a visionary for choosing him.
Precisely. When he paints the Sistine Chapel ceiling, it's not just Michelangelo's masterpiece. It's a monument to the glorious reign of Pope Julius II. Michelangelo becomes the vehicle for the Pope's legacy, for his immortality.
So the Pope's pride in being the patron of this great artist became bigger than his insecurity about the artist's talent. He basically took ownership of Michelangelo's genius.
Yes, that's the key takeaway for you, the learner. You have to position your unique skills in a way that they appear to support and enhance the master's power. Your brilliance must always seem to be a tool that the master, in their wisdom, chose to wield.
It's a calculated dependency. It's not about pretending you're less capable. It's about being so capable that you make the master look even better.
Which is so much more effective in the long run. And this idea of performance, of calculation, brings us to the second key strategy for indirect power. Concealing effort. The Italians had a word for it, sprezzatura.
Sprezzatura. The art of making difficult things look easy.
Of making everything look effortless, natural. It's about grace under pressure. The subject must never, ever let the master see them sweat.
This was a big deal in the Renaissance courts, right?
A very big deal. Castiglione wrote about it as the essential quality for any courtier. If what you do requires immense labor, hours of practice, painstaking planning, you must hide all of it. You present the final product with an air of casual ease.
Why is hiding the effort so important?
Because power needs an element of magic, of illusion. If your boss sees the spreadsheets, the 20 failed drafts, the all-nighters you pulled to get that report done, the magic is gone. You become
It's another hard worker.
just a mortal. Exactly. What is understandable is never awe-inspiring. If I can see all the gears and wires behind your creation, I might start thinking, hey, maybe I could build that too.
Right, but if it seems to just flow out of you naturally.
Then the master assumes it's an innate gift, something they could never replicate. Your skill seems more profound, more essential. Think about a brilliant presentation. We know it took weeks of prep, but the presenter has to deliver it as if the ideas just came to them that morning.
You're creating an artwork that entertains, not a manual that instructs.
Yes. And sprezzatura does two things. It protects your mystique, making you seem more capable than you are, and it also protects your boundaries. If the master thinks your work is easy for you, they're less likely to question how long it takes. If they see you struggling, they might just think you need to struggle harder. It's a defensive art.
Okay, so we've established that for a strong master, concealment is the key to survival. But the sources are very clear that this isn't a blanket rule. There are times when being too afraid to outshine someone is actually the bigger mistake.
This is the reversal. It's the most dangerous part of the law, but also the most critical for your own advancement.
And it all comes down to one thing.
One thing. Gauge his strength. You have to become an expert analyst of your superior's position, because the strategy you use for a strong, secure master is the exact opposite of the one you use for a weak, failing one.
So let's talk about that moment of opportunity, the falling star. How do you identify one, and what do you do?
A falling star is a master who is visibly weakening. They're losing political allies, their judgment is getting worse, their projects are failing. But, and this is key, they still have their title. They still have enough formal power to hurt you if you challenge them head on. They're wobbling, but they haven't fallen yet.
And in that specific situation, the sources say, do not be merciful.
The language is incredibly cold-blooded. If your master is a falling star, there is nothing to fear from outshining him. In fact, you have a duty to yourself to start positioning for the transition. The sources remind you that your master didn't get to the top by being sentimental.
So you actively hasten their downfall.
Discreetly, yes. You might take credit for a success at a key moment when they're not around to claim it for themselves. You might let one of their mistakes become more public than it needed to be. You're helping gravity along.
Because if you don't, someone else will. And you'll go down with the ship.
Exactly right. It's a closing window of opportunity. But this is where it gets really nuanced. You have to know the difference between a falling star and a superior who is simply very weak and ready to fall.
What's the tactical difference there? It sounds similar.
It's a crucial distinction. The very weak superior is already finished. Their fate is sealed. Everyone knows it. They have no political capital left, no ability to retaliate. They're sinking on their own.
And in that case,
you do nothing. You let nature take its course.
why? Why not get the credit for the final push?
Because of optics. Because of your reputation. If you're seen kicking someone who's already down, it might appear cruel or spiteful. Your first big move into a position of power can't be an act of bullying a pitiful figure. You look weak, not strong.
So you save your political capital. You gain nothing by attacking someone who can't fight back, and you risk looking bad to your peers and your future subordinates.
Precisely. Ruthlessness is for the dangerous and wounded. Strategic inaction is for the politically dead. It's all about perception.
Okay, but what about the opposite scenario? The master's not weak at all. They're the Sun King. They are firm in their position. What then?
Then you embrace the hardest strategy of all. Pure, unrelenting patience. This is the long game. You hide your talent, you bide your time, and you accept, almost as a matter of faith, that it is the natural course of things that power eventually fades and weakens.
That sounds agonizing. Years, maybe decades of suppressing your own ambition.
It is. But that time isn't wasted. Hiding your talent doesn't mean doing nothing. It means you become an observer, a student of power.
What are you studying?
You're studying your master. You watch their successes, sure, but more importantly, You watch their mistakes. You see their vulnerabilities. You learn who their enemies are. You're gathering intelligence. You're also networking, quietly building alliances with peers who might one day be useful. You're becoming a sponge.
The sources say patience is a virtue of the gods because they have all the time in the world.
And you have to adopt that mindset. You can't force a strong master to fall, but you can be ready for when they inevitably do. And the promise in the text is what keeps you going. Your master will fall someday, and if you play it right, you will outlive and someday outshine him.
So while they're busy fighting today's battles, you're preparing for tomorrow's war.
Exactly. You are maturing in the shadows, ready to step into the light when the vacuum appears.
Up to now, we've really focused on this vertical relationship, you and the person directly above you. But the sources point out that the power game is just as intense horizontally with your peers and rivals.
Yes, and this is where so many ambitious people trip up. They put all their energy into managing their boss, and they completely ignore the resentment they're building up among their equals.
How does that play out?
Well, if you're constantly the brilliant one, the one with all the best ideas, the one getting all the praise, you make your peers anxious and insecure, and they will consolidate against you.
They'll form a united front.
A very dangerous one. They'll go to the master with complaints. Maybe not about your work, but about your attitude, about you not being a team player. And the master, faced with a choice between one disruptive genius and a harmonious team, will almost always choose harmony. They'll get rid of the problem.
Which means you. So you have to sometimes deliberately tone down your own brilliance.
You have to, and there is a perfect historical example of this. The painter, J.M.W. Turner.
Tell us that story.
Turner was, the rock star of British landscape painting. His work was famous for this incredible radiant light. At a big exhibition, one of his most brilliant paintings, Cologne, with this amazing golden sky, was hung right next to a painting by Sir Thomas Lawrence.
Okay. And Lawrence was?
Lawrence was the president of the Royal Academy, a very powerful man, and his painting next to Turner's looked dull, mediocre.
So Turner was outshining him just by proximity. That must have created some friction.
Intense friction. Lawrence was furious and complained bitterly. He had the political clout to make Turner's life very difficult. So Turner, seeing this, did something extraordinary.
What did he do?
In front of everyone, he walked up to his own masterpiece and smeared a big patch of dull black paint lamp black right over the brilliant golden sky. He deliberately ruined the effect.
He sabotaged his own work? People must have been shocked.
They were horrified. A friend came up and asked him why on earth he would do that, and Turner just said, "Poor Lawrence was so unhappy. And besides, it's only lamp black. It'll wash off after the exhibition."
Wow. That's next level strategic thinking.
It's the essence of it. He understood that placating a powerful rival was more important in that moment than displaying his own genius perfectly. He took a temporary calculated loss to avoid a long-term political war.
He applied a temporary filter to his own brilliance.
And that's a great metaphor for the modern world. How do you apply lamp black to your own work? Maybe it means you let a colleague present your best data point as their own, earning their loyalty.
Or in a group project, you don't use your most advanced skills, so the final product looks like a team effort, not your solo show.
Exactly. You have to manage the anxieties of your equals, not just your master. And this also applies downwards to your own subordinates.
How so?
Once you're in a position of power, you can't allow one of your own subordinates to outshine you or to create chaos in your team. If you have an overly ambitious, disruptive person working for you, a stirrer, they make you look like a weak manager.
They reflect poorly on you to your master.
Yes. And the sources are ruthless about this. They say, strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. You have to isolate and remove the one person who is truly challenging the dynamic before their attitude infects everyone else. You have to show you can control your own domain.
As we get to the end of our analysis here, let's talk about the small things. The tiny mistakes that can undo all the grand strategy. The sources are really clear that even a simple joke can be fatal.
Yes. The phrase used is that undutiful words often take deeper root than the memory of ill deeds. A joke is uniquely dangerous.
Why a joke specifically?
Because a joke, especially one at the master's expense, strips away their dignity, it punctures their aura of power and makes them look ordinary, human. And that is a far greater crime than, say, turning in a report late.
The example of the Earl of Essex and Queen Elizabeth I is brutal.
Absolutely. Robert Devereux, the Earl of Essex, was a favorite of the aging Queen Elizabeth. He'd already messed up, badly led a failed insurrection, and she had been somewhat lenient, but then he made a fatal joke.
What did he say?
The Queen, who was very conscious of her age, apparently said something about his character, his heart and stomach. Essex, furious, retorted to his allies that she was as crooked in mind as she was in carcass.
Oof. A joke about her physical appearance, her age, her body.
The two things she was most insecure about. It was an attack on her pride, her image as the eternally powerful Virgin Queen. And the sources are clear. His rebellion didn't get him executed, but that one undutiful comment did. It sealed his fate.
The lesson is just ironclad then. Never joke about the master's flaws, ever.
The poorhouses of history are filled with clever people who made a joke at the wrong time. It's an act of psychological warfare, and you will get a swift and decisive response.
So if open brilliance is out, if flattery is dangerous, if jokes are fatal, we're left with that strategic concealment we saw with Michelangelo. You have to make yourself essential, but in a safe way.
And maybe the ultimate master of this, for a time at least, was Thomas Cromwell serving King Henry VIII.
He had to manage one of the most volatile and dangerous masters in history.
And he did it brilliantly for almost a decade. Cromwell rose to power by helping Henry get what he wanted most, a divorce from Catherine of Aragon. But he didn't just solve that one problem.
What did he do?
He pushed the king into something much, much bigger. The total break from the Catholic Church, the creation of the Church of England, the dissolution of the monasteries. He engineered a revolution.
But wait, how is engineering a massive, successful revolution not outshining the master?
Because every single step of it was framed as advancing King Henry's power, his legacy, his wealth. Cromwell created a political storm so huge and complex that only he could manage it. He made Henry utterly dependent on his unique administrative and political skills to see it through.
So he made the king a captive of his own grand ambition. Henry's power grew immensely, but so did his need for Cromwell, the only man who knew how to run the new system.
He became the essential extension of the king's will. And that is the highest form of this law, using your genius to push the master's agenda so far forward that you become structurally indispensable to their success.
Even though Cromwell eventually fell, he mastered that dependency for years. So it really boils down to this core contradiction, doesn't it? To get power, you need to be good. But being too obviously good is toxic to the person who has power over you.
It is, because the master's ego is the most powerful, most irrational force in any hierarchy. The true genius isn't just being brilliant. It's having the psychological discipline to know when and how to show that brilliance so that it always serves the master and never threatens them.
You have to be a chameleon.
The ultimate chameleon. You have to constantly adjust the brightness of your own light to fit the room.
This first law really is a complete course in psychological warfare, isn't it? It forces you to learn how to read another person's vanity, how to control every aspect of your own presentation, and how to practice this almost inhuman patience while you wait for your moment.
And the fact that this law is still so relevant tells you something profound about the world. That relationships, even in our modern professional lives, aren't run by logic or pure merit. They're run by emotion, by insecurity, by ego.
You could be the most talented person in the room, but if you don't manage the perception of that talent, you're finished.
You will be neutralized quickly.
So, let's leave you with a final provocative thought. We've talked about the reversal, that cold calculus. If the master is strong, you hide and wait. But if you identify a falling star, someone who is vulnerable but still dangerous, the instruction is clear and brutal. Do not be merciful. So the question for you to think about is this. What kind of internal discipline, what kind of emotional control do you need to build in yourself right now so that when that moment finally comes, you're the one ready to play the long game? How do you ensure you're the one positioned to strike rather than the one who gets banished first because you ran out of that most essential virtue, strategic patience, that relentless self-control? That is the real beginning of power.